Hello everybody, and welcome to Let's Discuss Morrowind. As you can hear, the mic is fine. Don't know what happened, like I said, but we're back, and everything is working fine for everything except that video. So I don't really understand, like I said. But, hasn't been long since the last Discuss video, but a couple of things. Mostly because we got a whole lot of books last episode. Here they all are. So, I think there might be a couple down here. I think I dropped a load or something. We've got a couple of books to read, so we'll do that. I think there's only about 3 or 4. But a couple of things like on my mind, and you guys have raised a few things, so let's go on with it. So let's discuss. Okay, your points. 2 things, really, because it's only been 1 video. 2 people actually suggested using a shield spell, or at least a strong version, like a strong potency shield spell, in order to cast like an airtight bubble in which to go underwater. And I like it. I like it, I do. Because it's the only way the Karish is ever going to go underwater, because it'll be like a little submarine for him. Since we're playing the shield spell that way, I think it's going to have to be pretty high in terms of potency, though, in order to sort of make it completely watertight. I would say, honestly, it might be need to be 100%, which is quite a lot, so maybe not that high, but I like the idea, definitely, and it might be a good way to get him underwater, because we do have to go underwater in the main quest at some point and actually drown, so that'll be interesting to find a way to get Karish to do that. But, so, yeah, I like the idea. We're a little bit away from it, I think. Although alteration is pretty high, really. 52, relatively speaking, that's quite high, really. And, so, yeah, definitely something to think about. Also, somebody said that, you know, maybe Karish should be, if indeed he isn't already, like a collector of rare antiquities. And to be honest, even though every single Morrowind character ever is a collector of rare antiquities in one way or another, whether they hoard them in some modded mansion or actually equip them, I like the idea. So I think I'll go with that, though I think he's going to be quite specific in what he likes. And we currently have Magebane, don't we? Do we have it like with this save? We do. Now that's worth quite a lot of money. And we also have the Wizard's Staff. So whether I want to like keep that sort of stuff, it's either keep it or sell it for a ridiculously low price. And I don't know. I'll probably keep it because, you know, that's just what you do, isn't it? Plus, keeping stuff is a nice way to sort of reminisce about what you've done. Like, oh yeah, we found Magebane in that cave and whatever. And now Karish has found 2 wizard staffs, one of which he's sold, but he might keep this one. I'm not entirely sure. He might sell this one as well. Why would he, you know, keep one and sort of sell one and not sell the other? Because we have already defined that they are useless to him, seeing as they do nothing that he can already do himself. So, and they're heavy, and he doesn't like heavy things. So I like that idea. Although I'm not really sure, honestly, how to manifest that, because, like I say, it's not to sort of belittle the idea, but it is kind of a generic thing that happens in Morrowind anyway. That you keep all these antiquities that you find. The only exception with Karish is that he won't use any of them, with the exception being actual magical items with charges and stuff, because, you know, he uses amulets and rings, but with the exception of that, and clothing and everything. So enchanted items, yes, but weapons and armor, no. And clothing, obviously. So he's I hope that Tel Ervish, or whatever it's called, is quite big, and I think it is, the modded version of it, because eventually we'll need a lot of space to put stuff in. But yeah, I like the idea of him being a collector of rare antiquities, even though it's not entirely unique to Morrowind. Okay, my thoughts. So the big thing last time in the Let's Discuss video, for you guys, was that I was thinking about doing 2 hours, two hours a week. Yeah, 2 episodes a week, really. And I'm still thinking about it. Although I'm leaning towards, even though you guys were like really like supportive of that idea and thinking, yes, we need more Morrowind, and we can always have Let's Discuss videos once a month or once every 6 weeks or whatever. And I like those suggestions as well, because you guys like the Let's Discuss videos, so that we get to air thoughts like this and talk more casually about the character and the Let's Play. But even though you were all really kind of supportive of that and thought I should give it a go, I'm leaning towards not doing it now that the sort of thought has sort of embedded into me, and I sort of slept on it, and thought about it a bit more. And the reason that I think that the LP works right now is because I come home on a Friday and it's a kickstart to my weekend. So the question would be when I would record it. Other than that, and it'll be like middle of the week, and it just wouldn't have the same impact on me psychologically, thinking, it's Morrowind time, let's start the weekend. So it's not always best that more is better type thing, and I know I could try it and see how it went, but I don't think I will. Now that I'm sort of thinking about it, I think I'll keep the format how it is. It's working, and you guys are enjoying it, and I don't think there's any need to push it anymore. We'll still have Let's Discuss videos every couple of weeks, and but I think that the LP would suffer if there's too much of it. I'm playing too much. What it did do, however, is because I even considered it and sort of realised that I could do other Let's Plays. Well, I had time to do the Let's Play. I probably will, because currently I'm doing Deus Ex Mankind Divided, and I'm really enjoying that, but I'm getting a massive buffer on that because I'm just like wading into that game. I'm really enjoying it. So I could start another Let's Play. I know this has nothing to do with Morrowind now, but I'm just sort of airing my thoughts about things in general, which kind of isn't the point of these videos. But I might start Warhammer Total War 2 as a Let's Play. That or Fallout New Vegas, but the thing is with that is I do want to play it, but it's another role-playing game and another first-person type thing, so I might vary the genres a little bit. But yeah, it's kind of connected because it did make me realise that I do have the capacity for more. So now that I've sort of like not done as much creative writing stuff as I used to do, and that's not in my head, I can turn my attentions more to games and streams online, so I can put out more content, and it does help that I don't have a life as well, but that's by the by. So I think I won't do the extra episode of Morrowind, but I will just continue it as it is, because it works and you guys are really enjoying it, and I don't want to kind of mess with the format too much. Alright, shall we read some books? But I do want to remind you guys that your thoughts and comments are always welcome, and while this isn't interactive, you guys who are watching this are obviously really into it, and you're probably going to stay for a while, and you have watched most, if not all, of the Let's Play. So if you've got any feedback and whatever, as you know, I do really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch it, and if you've got any feedback, good or bad or whatever, I'm really interested to hear what you have to say. And if I don't address your comment directly, I have definitely read it, and it might have an influence, it might not, but don't read too much into it if I haven't spoken about it. I just might be mulling it over or something, Okay, book time. Might as well just launch right into it. We've got a couple of skill books to read here. One is called Fae Falcon 1, and amazingly enough, we can actually read the first of a book series first, I think, because I don't recognise this at all. There's Silence, there's the 4 Suitors of Bonita, and I think that's it, as far as I can see. So we've got 3 books to read. This is by Wagin Jath. The sage was a tall, untidy man, bearded but bald. His library resembled him. All the books had been moved over the years to the bottom shelves. Okay. where they gathered in dusty conglomerations. He used several of the books in his current lecture, explaining to his students, Taksim and Vong Uldak, how the Mages Guild had first been founded by Vanus Galerian. They had many questions about Galerian's beginnings in the Psijic Order and how the study of magic they're different from the Mages Guild. It was and is a very structured way of life, explained the great sage, while quite elitist actually. That was the aspect of it that Galerian was subjected to. He wanted the study of magic to be free. Well, not free exactly, but at least available to all who could afford it. In doing that, he changed the course of life in Tamriel. He codified the praxis and rituals used by all modern potion makers, item makers, and spell makers. Didn't he, great sage? Asked Vog Oldak. That was only part of it. Magic, as we know it today, comes from Vanus Galerian. He restructured the schools to be understandable by the masses. He invented the tools of alchemy and enchanting, so everyone could cut whatever they wanted, whatever their skills and purse would allow them to, without fears of magical backfire. Eventually he created that. What do you mean, great sage? Asked Taksim. The first tools were more automated than the ones we have today. Any layman could use them without the least understanding of enchantment and alchemy. On the Isle of Artaeum, the students had to learn the skills laboriously and over many years, but Galerian decided it was another example of the Psijic elitism. The tools he invented were like robotic master enchanters and alchemists, capable of creating anything the customer required, provided he could pay. So someone could, for example, create a sword that would cleave the world in twain? Asked Vog Uldak. I suppose, in theory, but it would probably take all the gold in the world, chuckled the great sage. No, I can't say we were ever in very great danger, but that isn't to say there weren't a few unfortunate incidents where an unschooled yokel invented something beyond his ken. Eventually, of course, Galerian tore apart his old tools and created what we use today. It's a little elitist, requiring that people know what they're doing before they do it, but remarkably practical. What did people invent? Asked Taksim. Are there any stories? You're trying to distract me so I don't test you, said the great sage, but I suppose I can tell you one story, just to illustrate a point. This particular tale takes place in the city of Alinor, on the west coast of Somerset Isle, and concerned a scribe named Thuabad. This was in the Second Era, not long after Vanus Galerian had first founded the Mages Guild and chapter houses that sprung up all over Somerset, though not yet spread to the mainland of Tamriel. For 5 years, this scribe, Thuabad, had conducted all his correspondence to the outside world by way of his messenger boy, Gorgos. For the first year of his adoption of the hermit life, his few remaining friends and family of his dead wife, truth be told, had tried visiting, but never even the most indefatigable kin gives up eventually when given no encouragement. No one had good reason to keep in touch with Thuabad Hulzik, and in time very few even tried. His sister-in-law sent him the occasional letter with news of people he could barely remember, but even that communication was rare. Most of the messages to and from his house dealt with his business, writing the weekly proclamation from the temple of Aluriel. These were bulletins nailed to the temple door, community news, sermons, that sort of thing. The first message Gorgos brought him that day was from his healer, reminding him of his appointment on Turdas. Thuabad took a while to write his response, glum and affirmative. He had the crimson plague, which he was being treated for at considerable expense. You have to remember, these were the days before the School of Restoration had become quite so specialized. It was a dreadful disease that had taken away his voice box. That was why he only communicated by script. The next message was from Alfiers, the secretary at the church as curt and noxious as ever. Thurbad attached is Sundas's sermon, next week's events calendar, and the obituaries. Try to liven them up a little. I wasn't happy with your last attempt. Thurbad had taken the job putting together the bulletin before Alpheus joined the temple, so his only mental image of her was purely theoretical and evolved over time. At first, he thought of Alpheus as an ugly, fat slowness, covered with warts. More recently, she had mutated into a rail-thin spinster Orcus. Of course, it was possible his clairvoyance was accurate, and she had just lost weight. Whatever Alpheus looked like, her attitude towards Thurbad was clear, unwavering disdain. She hated his sense of humour, always found the most minor of misspellings and grammar Nazi, and considered his structure and calligraphy the worst kind of amateur work. Luckily, working for a temple was the next most secure job to working for the good king of Alienor. It didn't bring in very much money, but his expenses were minimal. The truth was, he didn't need to do it anymore. He had quite a fortune stashed away, but he didn't have anything else to occupy his days. And the truth was further that having little else to occupy his time with thoughts, the bulletin was very important to him. Gorgos, having delivered all the messages, began to clean, and as he did so, he told Thurbad all the news in town. The boy always did so, and Thurbad seldom paid him any attention. But this time he had an interesting report. The Mages Guild had come to Alienor. As Thurbad listened intently, Gorgos told him about the guild, the remarkable Archmagister, and the incredible tools of alchemy and enchanting. Finally, when the lad had finished, Thurbad scribbled a quick note and handed a quill to Gorgos. The note read, "Have them enchant this quill. It will be expensive," said Gorgos. Thurbad gave Gorgos a sizable chunk of the thousands of gold pieces he had saved over the years, and sent him out the door. Now, Thurbad decided, he would finally have the ability to impress Eldefairs and bring glory to the temple of Uriel. The way I heard the story, Gorgos had thought about taking the gold and leaving Alienor, but he had come to care for the poor old Thurbad. I thought that was going to happen. And even more, he hated Alpheus, who had to see every day to get his messages for his master. It wasn't perhaps for the best of motivations, but Gorgos decided to go to the guild and get the quill enchanted. The Mages Guild was especially not then, an elitist institution, as I have said, but when the messenger boy came in and asked to use the item maker, he was greeted with some suspicion. When he showed the bag of gold, the attitude melted, and he was ushered into the room. Now, I haven't seen one of the enchanted tools of all, so you must use your imagination. There was a large prism for the item to be bound with magicka, assuredly, and an assortment of soul gems and globes of trapped energies. Other than that, I cannot be certain how it looked or how it worked. Because of all the gold he gave to the guild, Gorgos could infuse the quill with the highest price soul available, which was something Daedric called Fey Falcon. The initiate of at the guild, being ignorant as most guild members were at the time, did not know very much about the spirit except that it was filled with energy. When Gorgos left the room, the quill had been enchanted to its very limit and then some. It was virtually quivering with power. Of course, when Thurbad used it, that was when it became clear how over his head he was. "And now," said the great sage, "it's time for your test." But what happened? What were the quill's powers? Tried Taksim. "You can't stop a tale there," objected Vong Olkdak. "We will continue the tale after your conjuration test, provided you both perform exceptionally well," said the great sage. Oh! Cliffhanger! We'll have to look out for those. Especially because I think they train enchant, which is actually a really useful skill to get trained, because it's difficult to level up, as we can see. And it affects intelligence, which is extremely useful for our protagonist here. What is our intelligence? 76, blimey. Smart guy. Silence! I've heard of you, said the old vagabond, very impressed. Aren't you the adventurer who slew all those ash vampires in Ghostgate a couple of months back? That I am, said Austian Silverthorn with a weary smile for his admirer. He knew that his name was not yet legendary, and it was best to be polite. And you are? My name would have been no meaning to you, for I am Error Darothil. he said, raising a glass of grief. I hail from the region of Ghostgate, which is how I heard your name. Are you on an adventure as we speak? Yes, said Silverthorn, with a grim expression. I'm challenged to rid the Grayslands of a rogue battle mage by the name of Iro Amaro. I've heard of him as well, said Darathil. He is said to be very powerful, an implacable foe. That is why I am drinking now, sighed Silverhorn. So tell me, what is your profession? I do nothing, said Darathil, with some measure of pride. But in my youth I used to teach the skills of illusion at the University of Gwilym. Perhaps you can help me then, said Silverthorn, suddenly excited. Can you teach me the spell Silence? I can certainly pay you. I know that spell, said Darathil. You might find invisibility very useful as well, or perhaps darkness, which would allow you to sneak up on old Ero Armano. No, said Silverhorn firmly. I only have time to learn one spell. I have to kill Ergo Armano, collect the reward, and be back in Nisus as quickly as possible. My wife worries when I'm away. Darathil agreed, and as the two settled back in their seats at the corner club and tossed back glasses of grief, the old man shares his knowledge of the spell. He explained that it truly meant to bend sound, creating a cone of silence as glass can bend light. He had Silverthorn close his eyes while he tapped the side of his glass, making him picture the sound as the physical entity it was before it was extinguished. The adventurer, having a few hours of instruction, paid the old teacher and set off on his way. Oh, we've heard of this. Well, I have anyway. Indo Ranyon, Ergorameo's stronghold, was not far from Sadrith Mora. And he soon saw the blight and ruin that was the Battle Mage's calling card. Delving into the depths of the ruin, Silverthorn was set upon by the servitors of Ergo, living and undead. With his enchanted ebony blade, he cut through the legions before facing the master himself in the desolate main hall. Ergo bowed... well, I can't call him Ergo because that's another word. Ergo and Mano bowed to his adversary sardonically, and then prepared to unleash a fireball to incinerate him. Before he had uttered the first word of the spell, he suddenly found that all the creaking and sighing of the ruins around him had been stilled. He opened his voice to speak, but there was no sound. Silverthorn took his time, strolling across the length of the hall before dispatching the battle mage with only one stroke of his blade. The adventurer rushed back to the Tribunal Temple, where he had received his quest, accepted his gold and thanks, and was back in his house in Nisus but a few days later. His wife, Laia, was beside herself with worry. All I could do night after night is toss and turn. I kept imagining you burnt to ashes by that battle mage, and where would that leave me? Do we have enough gold? I know where this is going. Do we have enough gold that I could support myself if you, St. Serin... hang on. Do we have enough gold so that I could support myself if you, St. Serin, let it not be so, were killed during one of these jaunts? I don't think so. Why couldn't you get a nice position at the Fighters Guild right here in town? I hear they're looking for a trainer at the Imperial Guard. I know you want a life of adventure and danger and freedom, but if you could only take one moment to think of me, stuck here all by myself worrying about you. I suppose you'd like it if I took more of an interest in your work, but it's like I was telling Sir Cassiah Vigam the other day. I said, Cassiah, what good is a husband? Laia continued to talk, deaf to the fact that her words were dead before they left her mouth. Silverthorn smiled and nodded his head, enjoying the silence. He could have killed Ergo Marrow without the spell, he considered, but he could not have survived his wife. Little humour in that one. Good stuff. And finally, the four suitors of Bonita. Up until he was 10 years old, Oin Panaphacasis was an elite group of the very best families of Nisus. He went to the very best tailors, shared the same tutors, played in the same exclusive company. When his mother died and his family discovered that the money they had been living on was based off a thief's salary, he suddenly found himself on a very different kind of society, one that he had been ill-equipped to deal with. They were poor. Oin eventually learned to make a living at the only skill he seemed to be well suited for, gardening. In time, he had grown an impressive garden of willow anther, gold cornet, chokeweed, white bloatroot, and charmer shrubs. He had also grown himself into a remarkably uninteresting man. Aside from his gardening, he had little to say for himself. Unlearned, uncharismatic, unathletic, uncoordinated, and yet he yearned. Specifically, he yearned for a girl he had known before all his trouble, a sweet thing with curly locks and a joyous laugh named Bonita Gorgoth. Once, when at play, he had pushed a bully away who was trying to hurt her, and the look of appreciation she gave him was enough to make all his days since then worth their while. As he tended the garden one springtide, not many years ago, he heard some people talking through the thick, tall charmer shrubs about the marriage of Sedura Indoril Paflek Mamuna, one of the wealthiest and most respectable nobles in Nisus, and Sergio Bonita Gorgoth. His heart fell. She had found another, and a mere 9 years, since she had given him that look while at play. As spring turned to summer and summer turned to fall, Oin began to sell his herbs, including some to Kenna Yakin Bale, a prominent healer in town. He had been a tutor to both Bonita and Oin, and told the young man that the lady's husband was not very well. Oin held back his happiness and continued on his errands. Not long afterwards, Sedura Inoril Pafek Amur fell ill and died, despite all the skills of the great healers, including Yakin Bale. When Oin came to deliver herbs that day, he said, "If you are still in the communication with Bonita, please give her my sympathies." "Nchao," said Yakin. "If I could get a word in with all her counsellors, they are trying to find her a new husband, and she has made it clear that she will only marry the strongest man in Morrowind." "Who is that?" asked Oin. "Horath the Strong," replied Yakin. "It is said that he can lift a wagon with but his forefinger and thumb." "If you can teach me a spell that will fortify my own strength," replied Oin, I beg you to teach it to me now." "Very well," replied Yakin, "but in return I want your next season's worth of charmer root, all to myself." Oin agreed, and Yakin taught him the spell to fortify his strength. It took him some time to master it, visualizing magicka streaming through his body, pumping through the very fibers of his muscles for a time, giving him strength far beyond the puny power nature had intended. When Oin met Horath on the street of Nisus, he cast a spell and challenged him to a duel of strength. "I am Horath the Strong," said Horath the Strong predictably. "Witness as I lift this wagon with but my thumb and forefinger," and he did so. "I am Nimlon the Mighty," said Oin, taking some artistic liberty. "Witness as I lift the stable that houses your wagon with but my forefinger." And he did so. The word went quickly through Morrowind. The strongest man alive was in the province. Oin went to visit his friend, Yakin Bale. Her lady Bonita has heard of the strength of Nimlon the Mighty and said that she was mistaken. She was not looking for a man of strength to marry, but a man of intelligence, a great scholar, the greatest in all of Morrowind. "Who is that?" asked Oin. "Kenna Wafel Tomlinson," replied Yakin. "It is said that he can best any man or woman in a battle of wits." "Can you teach me a spell that will fortify my intelligence?" said Oin. "I beg you to teach it to me now." "Very well," replied Yakin, "but in return I want your next season's worth of white bloatroot, all to myself." Oin agreed, and for the next couple of weeks Yakin taught him the spell and trained him in its use. He taught him how to entrench his mind for the sudden assault of awareness and aptitude that would assail it, and how to give himself to the sudden thoughts and theorems that would invade his consciousness. When he met Warfel Thomasin in the Mages Guild of Nisus, he cast his spell and gave the challenge. "I am Kenna Warfel Tomlinson, and I can prove that Akatosh, Nern, and Oblivion are one," said Warfel, writing out a mathematical formula that showed it was so. "I am Kenna Zombel Mokafa, and I can prove that you do not exist," said Oin, and he wrote out the mathematical formula, which proved correct, and Kenna Warfel Tomlinson vaporized on the spot. The word went out quickly through Morrowind, and the most intelligent man alive was in the province. Oin went to visit his friend, Yakin Bale. Her Lady Bonita has heard of the intelligence of Kenna Zombel Mokafa and has said that she was mistaken. She was not looking for a man of intelligence to marry, but a man of endurance, a rock, the greatest in all of Morrowind. Who is that? Asked Oin. I would say Master Komvova, said Yakin. They say he can stand in blue flames for 20 minutes. Can you teach me a spell that will fortify my own endurance? Said Oin. I beg you to teach it to me now. Very well, replied Yakin. But in return, I want your next season's worth of chokeweed, all to myself. Oin agreed, and for the next several weeks he learned the spell to make his endurance that of the oldest stone. He learned how to shrug off the effects of frost, poison, fire, and charges of lightning, pulling the pain into a reservoir of magicka and expelling it. The lesson learned, he came across Master Komvova at the Madak trade house. My name is Master Komvova, said the fellow, nudging the witch next to him. Kina Lilis cast a wall of blue flame for me, and he sat in the inferno of flame for 20 minutes before he left. Master Komvova, my name is Master Vomf, said Oin. Kina Lilis cast a ball of blue flames for me. Oin sat in the inferno of blue fire for nearly an hour before I left. The word went out quickly through Morrowind. The toughest man alive was in the province. Oin went back to visit his friend Yakin Bale. Her Lady Bonita has heard of the endurance of Master Vomf, he said, not entirely approving of Oin's latest sobriquet, and has said that she was mistaken. She was not looking for a man of endurance to marry, but a man of agility, a nimble acrobat of greatest of all in Morrowind. Who is that? Asked Oin. I would say Fun Krasoft Prift, said Yakin. They say he is the greatest shield blocker and pickpocket in Morrowind. Can you teach me a spell that will fortify my own agility? Said Oin. I beg you to teach it to me now. Very well, replied Yakin, but in return I want your next season's worth of gold canet all to myself. Oin agreed, and Yakin taught him the spell that would fire his impulses with magicka. Over several weeks he learned how to supplicant his own natural energy with the spells, how to view the world at the slower pace a man with advanced agility sees. In time, Oin came upon Fun Krazot in a field outside the city, doing his regular exercises. Oin cast his spell and approached the acrobat. Ah, behold the power of the amazing Fun Krazot Prif, said the aforementioned, and prompted his sparring partner to attack him with his sword. He blocked the blows effortlessly with a shield for 10 minutes, and then revealed afterwards that he had pickpocketed the young man's purse. Very impressive, Sir Prif. Now, behold the power of the remarkable Garzulf Much, said Oin, and prompted Prif's sparring partner to attack him with his sword. After 20 minutes of blocking the man's blows with his shield, he revealed that he had pickpocketed the guy's purse. The word went out quickly through Morrowind that most agile man in our life was in the province. Oin went to visit his friend Yakin Bale. The door was closed this time, and he heard voices within. Have you heard about the remarkable Xanof Mao? Yakin Bale was asking. She sounds like a very promising suitor. The truth is, Kenna, that I have no more interest in him than I had in Nimlon the Mighty, Kenna Zombel Mokafa, or Master Vomf, replied the feminine voice that seemed familiar to Oin. I will have to invent a new test for suitors while I search for my true love. I did not wish to marry the strongest, most... You don't wish to marry the strongest, most intelligent, toughest, most agile suitors? Asked the old healer. No, not at all, said the woman. I had to make some sort of test to rebuff their advances, so many men interested in my money and the money of my late husband. The truth is that I've never forgotten the young boy who was so kind to me when I was a little girl, and so brave fighting off the bullies. His name was Oin Pan Af Akasis. Oin burst into the room and was reunited with Bonita. They were married at once. A week later, he returned to Yakin Bale and learned how to fortify his personality in exchange for the next season's worth of Willow Anther. And they lived happily ever after. Well, thanks for that. Well, it had a happy ending, at least. It had a very fairy tale kind of ring to it, that. Now, what did he want with all those herbs and stuff? Well, that is it for this week's episode. I will see you on Sunday for more of the usual Morrowind. Until then, thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed those. And toodaloo.